Hello everyone, this is SirVG, and this is a demonstration video on how to speedrun a few specific games that you can't run on the Gameboy Player. As I mentioned in my last video, SDA has some specific standards in regards to running and recording Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance games via the Gameboy Player. Now, what happens when you run across a game like this? This is Kirby Tilt and Tumble for the Game Boy Color. For those of you who are not familiar with this game, there's a tilt sensor up in the top part of the cartridge here. Basically, instead of controlling the game via the D-pad, you actually tilt the system to control the game. Now, while you can do this with the Game Boy Player, there's a big problem. Well, you're holding this big, bulky Gamecube, and look where my hand is generally positioned, right in front of the heat vent. Same thing with the other side. So, it's quite uncomfortable. It's very heavy. And plus you're having to hold a controller on top of this to push the A button. It just doesn't work. So, I did a little research, and I came across this. This is the Innovation GBA TV converter. I purchased mine off Amazon. You could find it at various other places online. If you're not much into working with electronics, don't worry, this is very easy. It just takes a couple minutes to install it. Now, since I already have mine actually installed, I'm going to go over some basic points on how to install it. First off, cover the parts. You got your backing, with a removable piece of plastic right here. But the bigger thing is on the inside, which includes this ribbon cable. This will attach to a specific spot in the GBA. Don't worry, it's just a clip-on. No soldering is required at all. Then you got this, which is your video audio feed out, and also serves as a battery pack. At the bottom here, there's a picture switch. For speedrunning purposes, you will want this to off. I will cover a little bit more on this a little bit later in the video. You have your power switch and your obligatory LED. This TV converter includes both S-video and composite video and your red and white RCA jacks. It also includes your AC adapter, and it comes with two really cheap screwdrivers. You got your Phillips and your tri-line. Frankly, these things suck. If you're going to be working with a GBA, the DS, or the Wii a little more often, get yourself a good tri-line. This is my tri-wing screwdriver. As you can see, it's noticeably longer. It's got a rounded tip, which actually allows me to easily, remove and add in screws. It's helped me a lot. Anyway, there's 7 screws you need to remove on the GBA itself. 6 tri-wings, which include 2 at the top here. There's 2 a little bit farther down, right in these little holes. And then there's 2 in the holes on the bottom corners. If you also look very close in the battery compartment, there's a 7th screw of Phillips right here. Once you get all 7 removed, you could take the original backing off, which, this is the one from my old system. And you can get rid of that. Now, and then you attach the little ribbon cable on. The thing about this ribbon cable, if you look close enough, let me focus in here, you see a 1 and a 2 imprinted on the right hand side there. If you look right by the 1, there's a little thin piece of metal. This is important to note because it's got to line up in a specific spot depending on your GBA. Since I've already torn mine apart and put it together and such, I'm going to refer to the manual here. Now, there's 2 different types of ribbon cables, depending on your GBA. you know, mine happen to be actually a 32. And you'll see the number imprinted on the circuit board itself. Some of them will have a 40. Whichever it is, you need to note that for installing that ribbon cable. Now, the ribbon cable itself on the GBA exists, right about in here. As you actually look at the system, you'll have to attach it and line up with a piece of plastic on the system based on your ribbon cable. If you have a 32, the little piece of plastic will go to the left of that thin piece of metal. If you have the 40, it's going to go to the right side. It's a little finicky, but if you get funky colors on the screen, that's your indication you don't quite have it under right. It takes a little bit to work with, but it's pretty easy to install once you figure it out. So after that, you just slap the back on, attach your 7 screws all over again, and you're also going to need to remove that little flap back there if you're going to be actually connecting the system up. Now the reason why I happen to have 2, the first one I got was a dud. So make sure you, just like with any electronics, you get it from a place with a good return policy. This will be going back to Amazon once I'm done with my video. So for demonstration purposes, assuming my used copy of this game wants to run today, I'm going to be demonstrating using Tilt and Tumble. And just to show you a little bit better with the video, I'm going to also include a little sample of Metroid Fusion. This is a better way to demonstrate why you don't use the video switch on. So I'm going to start with Metroid Fusion because it shows the video better. Pop that in there. As you can see, no batteries. That's intentional because this is a battery pack now too. So there's a couple little hooks at the bottom there. You're just going to line them up in your battery pack, and they'll click right in there. And your audio cable, you just connect to the audio port on the GBA itself. Alright, plug your power, which goes in on the tops of that adapter. And I've got S-Video and R-Video plugged into my switcher. Now, power it on, and power on the battery pack itself. Okay. As you can see, the system is playing right on my GBA itself still, but it's also playing on the TV screen. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the picture switch. Right now it's set to off. This is pretty much comparable to normal on the Gameboy Player. But what happens if you switch this to on? It basically full screens the Game Boy Advance games. Off, on. All it's really doing is stretching your picture out. So if you have to do, if you're doing like Yoshi's Universal Gravitation, which is another tilt game, you're going to want to absolutely make sure it's off. Otherwise, your run's going to get rejected. So you can see it's hard to tell in the video here, but you can obviously see that it's the picture size is changing. But you're going to want it off for better picture quality. So, and just to try to show you how this works, I'm going to use Tilt and Tumble. Now, you're only going to want to use this for the rare game that you can't use the player for, the few tilt games, which there wasn't that many. So, besides, the obvious fact that the Game Boy Player is about the same price as this anyway, it's a little better picture quality than this from what I've seen, and look how much thickness this adds to it. I mean, this thing is huge. Yes, there are these nice little grooves, and humps to help you grip the system. but it's not particularly that comfortable compared to just using the GBA by itself. I'm going to see if this game boots today. Ah, booted first try. As you can see here, it's in Game Boy mode. Now, it doesn't go full screen with Game Boy Color games. It makes it a little bit bigger, but you still want to leave it in the smaller picture quality. So I'm going to start the game here. So now you actually have a really good way to Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, Advance, tilt games. And this will be a little uncomfortable to show, but I'll try to play a little bit here. Start a new game. And as you can see here, you tilt this. I'm actually tilting the system, and there you go. I know it's a little hard to see, but I'm doing the best I can with one hand. And pop, pop to make Kirby jump. And use the 8 button. So there you go. There's how you can do your tilt games now without having to use the little obnoxious Game Boy Player. I hope this video was helpful for you. If you have any questions, feel free to use the comments section, or you can also message me either here on YouTube, or you can contact me at SDA. I am LordVG on there. This is SirVG, signing off.